I quietly left after discovering my wife's affair, 3.5 years into our marriage. A year later, my ex-wife tracked me down after hearing about it. I moved to the hills, and while I'm not sure why I'm sharing this, I hope it can help someone now that everything is over and I've moved on. In February 2018, after 3.5 years of marriage, I found out about my wife's affair. I worked a job that often required travel, but it also allowed me to work from home. When I came back, I was the director of a technical sales company. My wife had a very well-paying job, but things had been tense because she worked longer hours, and I was often away for work. Despite this, we had what I thought was a great marriage. 5 years ago, at a cookout hosted by a mutual friend, I met my wife, who is now my ex. We hit it off right away. To be honest, I felt lucky to be with someone so attractive and articulate. She seemed to like my rough-around-the-edges personality. After a few weeks of dating, we became very fond of each other. We often met at each other's apartments, and things got physical quickly. After 18 months of dating, we got married and moved into a large apartment while saving for a house. Things started changing after about 3 years of marriage. Even though I still loved her, I noticed she would argue over small things. When I brought up her late hours and frequent work trips, she would get upset. She said it was part of climbing the corporate ladder and that I shouldn't challenge her since I was away so often. In reality, I only took short vacations every few weeks. I tried to assure her that I could travel less, but our arguments went nowhere. Looking back, I realized I didn't see the signs that she was having an affair. Our sex life was declining, and she kept working late, but I thought she was just tired from her job. I didn't suspect anything else. The rejection hurt my ego, but I didn't see anything suspicious. She used her work phone a lot, but I didn't catch her texting secretly. She worked in our spare bedroom, spending a lot of time there. In September 2017, Kathy started coming home later and spending more time at work events. What used to be 1 night a week turned into 3. Though I wasn't the jealous type, I knew she worked with a lot of male CEOs, and I figured she had to fend off some attention. She seemed focused on her job. I first suspected something was wrong a month before I found out the truth. One day, before coming home, she stopped at the supermarket. As I was helping her with the groceries, I noticed something pink shining from under the passenger seat of her car. It was a bra, one I recognized as hers, from a store she liked. Looking back, I realized that was a warning sign. She always took off her bra first when she was feeling particularly passionate, though I'm not sure why. When I saw this, I immediately felt sick to my stomach. I couldn't understand why her bra was under the seat. I didn't say anything, but my heart was pounding so hard I nearly passed out. When I went back to the kitchen with the bags, Kathy asked how I was feeling and said I looked like I had seen a ghost. I ignored her. It took all my strength to hide my feelings, but I tried my best not to show that I was upset or betrayed. I decided to figure out if she was seeing someone that night, and the next day, I started to think about all the signs I might have missed. Other than the bra, I had no proof. She works in an office downtown, and we live in a fairly large city. I decided to push the thought of an affair out of my mind for now, and focus on giving her more attention. I cooked a nice meal, set the table with fancy plates, silverware, and candles. On Friday, after work, I bought flowers and a nice bottle of wine. When she came home, as usual, breezing in after work, I showed her everything I had prepared. She apologized and said she had to go meet her co-workers at a neighborhood hangout. But she needed to shower first. She said she could have a small snack with me before she left. I think I went completely silent because my insides flipped. I was so angry, but I kept it to myself. I took my work phone and threw it in her back seat while she was in the shower. I thought about using my phone to track her. After that, I went to the kitchen and threw the food and flowers in the trash. She came out of the shower, got ready, and looked stunning as always. "All right, let's eat," she said. "Never mind, go out with your friends," I replied. She asked me if I was angry and gave me a strange look. "I'm sad you never want to do anything with me," I said. She got upset and sarcastically told me to stop acting like a child. I muttered, "Foolish me," and just stood there, letting everything sink in. For once, I felt like we should spend the evening together, but she just gave me a sly smile and stormed off. I pulled out my second phone and started tracking my work phone. I followed her to the bar she usually goes to with her coworkers. After about 20 minutes, I saw her stop there. I decided to check the parking lot, and sure enough, her car was there. I stayed across the street, feeling like a stalker, but I told myself I needed to calm down and find out where she was. About an hour later, I saw her leaving with a man who looked like an executive from her company. He kissed her on the lips, and my body went numb. My stomach twisted. They got into a different car and drove off, and I followed them. They went to a hotel 10 minutes away. I parked on the street next to the hotel and saw them holding hands as they went inside. I'd seen enough. I felt foolish and started pounding the steering wheel. It was like something snapped inside me. I'm not sure if I blacked out or had an out-of-body experience, but when I came to, I wanted a drink. My life had taken a turn I never expected. I drove out of town, replaying everything I had just seen. I was crying out of anger. As much as I hated to admit it, I found a small tavern about 30 miles outside of town. I stopped in, ordered a drink, and sat at the bar. The bartender, a woman, looked at me and said I looked like someone had knocked the wind out of me. I looked awful, and I smiled a little as I answered, "You could say that." A man sat next to me and started talking, even though I wasn't in the mood to chat. There was something about him that made me feel comfortable. We talked, and eventually I mentioned my wife's cheating. I told him all I wanted was to get away from her and forget her. "You're not alone, buddy," he said, giving me a quick pat on the back. "I went through something similar a few years ago. I think there's a reason things like this happen. Your life can go in a good or bad direction now. It's all up to you." His words surprisingly helped me feel a little better. Even though I was still in pain, I could see things clearly. And he was right. We introduced ourselves. His name was Ray. I liked his down-to-earth personality, even though he was more of a country guy. "Are you going to move out?" he asked. "I guess I hadn't thought that far ahead," I replied. "I just know I don't want to be around her anymore." Ray seemed to understand. "I have an idea," he said. "I have a mobile trailer on my land. It might need some work, but you could check it out and see if you could live in it for a while. I'd give you a great deal on it. Plus, you could park it on a nice piece of land I own. If you want, you can watch over it for me. It might help you get away from everything." The bartender, who had been listening, added, "If I could have gotten away from my crazy ex-husband years ago, I'd have jumped at the chance to live in a trailer just to clear my head. Maybe this was what I needed. I felt like I had entered a strange situation, but I said to Ray, I'll think about it and maybe check it out." We agreed to meet up at his place in a few days. At home later that night, I felt like I had a new perspective and an opportunity to escape the pain. I was sure about one thing. I never wanted to spend another moment with my wife. Cheating was something I could never accept. When I got home, Kathy came out and asked where I had been. "Where have you been?" I asked her. "I went to grab drinks," she replied. I asked straight out, "Are you having an affair?" She seemed shocked at first, then calmed down and said, "No, why would you ask that?" I told her I had heard she was seeing someone at work. "Who told you that?" she asked, but I didn't name the person. She called me crazy and drunk and then asked where I had been. "We're going to the bar to enjoy some drinks with friends," I said. She seemed like she wanted to ask more questions, but just went to bed instead. Now that I had proof she had been lying to me for months, I decided to sleep on the couch. But I couldn't sleep at all because I kept seeing her in bed with this guy. I felt sorry for myself, disgusted, and hurt. But then I thought about Ray's trailer, and it cheered me up. It was like a revelation. Something must be wrong with me because despite the pain, my instinct was to leave rather than confront it. I preferred to run away from the situation. The next morning, we didn't talk much, and we continued the weekend as if nothing had happened. A few days later, I scheduled a meeting with Ray. When I got there, I noticed his ranch was really nice. The trailer was 26 feet long and fully furnished, and it reminded me of a fun spring break trip I had in college. Ray agreed to sell me the trailer, and I almost took it from him. I drove to see his ranch, which had hiking and biking paths nearby. The area was beautiful with trees and shrubs, and Ray's cabin was on a hilltop overlooking the property. It had electricity and water, and it was close to the mountains. Ray promised to set up the trailer for me and move it to the location. Over the next few weeks, I tried to get Kathy to admit she was cheating, but all she did was gaslight me. I even told her that there would be no going back if I found out the truth. This only made her more involved in the affair and angry with me. I almost laughed at how ridiculous her denials were. I regretted not having pictures or any real evidence of her cheating. After going through all this emotional pain, I decided I wanted to leave the marriage. Instead of talking to Kathy, I just started planning. While she was at work, I secretly moved my things from the apartment to the trailer. At least I felt like I was doing something about it. During this time, Kathy started being a bit nicer to me, but I thought it was too little, too late. I felt like I needed a break, too. One evening, as she was about to leave for a company outing, I got ready as well. She asked where I was going, and I just said I was meeting up with some friends. I told her she wouldn't enjoy the conversation, and she didn't know them. When I said that, I remembered how she used to say the same thing to me when I asked if I could come with her. She looked a bit offended and said, "Okay, have a good time." I replied, "I definitely will." I started spending more time with Ray and his friends, working on the trailer and hanging out at the bar. It made me feel better. I also decided to cut back on my drinking because I didn't want to develop any unhealthy habits. I knew it would be easy to just drown in sympathy, but I chose not to. Then Kathy told me that the next week she would be traveling for work with some department heads. When I asked who would be going, I said, "I hope you have a great time with your boyfriend." I regretted saying it immediately because it led to a huge argument. But Ray told me it didn't matter. He said, "It doesn't matter who the other guy is. What matters is that she chose to leave you. She destroyed the marriage, whether she admits it or not." I had the perfect chance to move out completely while Kathy was gone. When she left, I packed up everything of mine, my clothes, laptops, and equipment. I didn't take any shared items or furniture. I left a note on the kitchen table, which started out long but ended up being short. I wrote, "I hope it was worth it." I took off my wedding ring and felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. As I left, I felt free. The pain would take time to heal, and there would be things to deal with. But I had started the process. I needed some time alone and wanted to quickly move on from her. I wasn't proud that I hadn't confronted her or forced a confession. I didn't yell or scream at her because I didn't think she deserved it. In my opinion, she had thrown away everything we had, our plans, dreams, and the life we were building together. Now it was all over, and there was no going back. I didn't owe her anything, and she would have to face the consequences. I hadn't made any plans or spoken to a lawyer. I just wanted a fresh start and some peace of mind. The mountain air was exactly what I needed. Back in my trailer, I went back to running, and it felt great to feel alive again. Kathy texted me things like, "We just landed," and "We're having a team dinner," while she was away. She also asked where I was and why I hadn't responded. My phone was bombarded with calls and messages when she returned, but I ignored them. Her mother even tried calling me, but I didn't pick up. She didn't try to contact my father because we're not close, and he's the only family I have left. Kathy's messages became more desperate after a week of being ignored. One of her texts said, "What is this? We need to talk. I don't know what you think is happening, but there's no affair." After a week of silence, she sent another text apologizing, saying things got out of hand. She said it didn't matter that she had been seeing someone at work, but she was just distracted by her job. She said it was a mistake and that she intended to end it. I had been waiting for this confession, but instead, it made me dislike her even more. Why couldn't she just be honest? I had no hope for a future with her. Mistakes don't go on for months or even a year. Her messages pleading for me to come back and work on our marriage became pathetic. I ignored her completely. Even after she stopped contacting me for a while, I didn't want her to find out where I lived or mess with my life. I didn't want her to ruin the peace I had found. Then she started sending angry texts, calling me a coward, and saying I didn't care about us. She begged me to come home and talk, asking if she could visit me. I didn't respond to any of it. After a while, I changed my number. In June 2018, Kathy emailed me saying she hired a lawyer and was filing for divorce. I just replied, Okay, that sounds good. After that, she sent more emails, asking me to visit and other things. She said she would stop bothering me if I agreed to an uncontested divorce. I agreed, and once I did, I felt truly free. A few months later, after I moved out of our apartment, I never had to see her again. She seemed to care more about getting the divorce than I did, and even though we never had any closure, I eventually stopped thinking about her. Once in a while, the grief would hit me. Like when I heard a song we used to listen to. But after a while, I stopped thinking about her completely. Now that I'm officially divorced, things are going well. I met a wonderful girl who lives just down the hill from my house. I was running on a trail when I helped her replace a flat tire, and we really hit it off. Even though she's a few years younger than me, she's amazing and very cute. She calls me her mountain man and loves my lifestyle. While I'm not rushing into a serious commitment, I'm not giving up on women either. I'm not planning to move out of my trailer anytime soon. I enjoy being outdoors, and simplifying my life has made everything easier, including dealing with the grief over my ex-wife. I know everyone handles situations like this differently, but I was lucky to have been married for 3 years without kids. I think I made the right choice for myself. You don't have to stay with someone who cheats. If you go through something like that, try not to dwell on it. Keep living your life and improving yourself, and things will get better. I hope everyone has the best life possible. I've rewritten this a few times to make it clearer, and I just wanted to update you on my ex-wife. I was worried she might be trying to find me, as I mentioned in my earlier post. I had moved from our old home, about 2 hours away, but I ran into her last weekend at a coffee shop in the town near my place. It didn't feel like a coincidence. Luckily, I managed to leave before she saw me. This past weekend I went into town for groceries and stopped by my usual coffee shop to use their free internet for some work. When I finished and was walking out, I heard someone shout my name. I turned and saw my ex-wife, Kathy, waving at me from across the street. She rushed over, and I was in shock, expecting her to hug me, but instead, she just extended her hand. I instinctively put my arms out, palms up, to stop her. She looked like she was in pain, then said, "I've been looking for you, Paul. I've wanted to see you since I heard you moved here. Can we talk?" I felt trapped, like an animal in a cage. We decided to find a table to talk, but I refused when she asked to come to my house. She followed me to a bench outside a store at the end of the street. She started by saying how much I'd changed, how much she liked my new look, my beard and fitness. She said my body had transformed, and she was really playing up the charm, wearing a tank top and white shorts, her hair in a ponytail like I used to like. I kept my guard up, knowing she was trying to turn on the sex appeal. She apologized for the affair, saying that after I left, karma hit her hard. Her boss found out about the affair, and things got so tense that she ended up resigning. Her affair partner, who was engaged at the time, got moved to another department, and he admitted the truth to his fiancée, which led to their breakup. She bowed her head and cried as she told me all of this. I didn't say anything, just sat there looking around. After a while, she looked at me and asked, "What do you want from me?" She assured me she didn't want to have an affair again. She said the company's politics and her affair partner's charm had drawn her in. She admitted that she was just as much to blame as he was, and that after the affair, she drank to numb the guilt because she hated herself. She said she felt stupid, alone, and heartbroken. Right after I left, she ended things with her affair partner. She wanted to find me to see if there was any chance of reconciliation. Since I refused to talk to her or get in touch, she hoped for a fresh start, even though she knew we were divorced. I just stared at her for a while, then I gave her the response she deserved. "You have no right to come here and try to fix the damage you've caused. Do you think I will forget what you did to destroy our relationship? As I said before, we're done. If you cheated, there is no forgiveness. This relationship won't restart. You ended it the moment you left me. You ruined everything we had. How foolish do you think I am? One evening, I saw you walk into a hotel with him. Did you know that? I noticed that people were starting to hear me getting louder." She grabbed my arm and started crying. After she cried on my shoulder for a while, I pushed her away. "I deserve all of this," she said, looking up at me. "I'm sure I do. Would you at least let me take you out to dinner? I would rather not go, I said. I want to talk more. I want us to be honest with each other. You need to spend more time with me than you have before. Paul, please, I love you so much. Even though I know you might not want to hear it. Before you left me, I had no idea how much I loved you. You broke me as much as I broke you. I can't forgive myself, and I don't think I will ever forgive myself. She began crying uncontrollably, struggling to breathe. I lifted her up and hugged her because it seemed like the only thing I could do to comfort her. I realized then that I had hurt her heart as badly as she had hurt mine. We walked to a quiet spot to continue talking. Once she calmed down, I asked, "How did you find me? Did you hire a private investigator?" After a moment, she laughed and said, "No. I ran into Stacy a few weeks ago. She asked how things were going and mentioned she had seen you. I made her tell me everything. I told her not to, but she eventually gave in. She knew you lived nearby and were in town on your days off, so I started coming here to check on you." I laughed a little, thinking, Stacy can't keep anything to herself. She blushed. We decided to have dinner at a nice little place with a patio. I made sure not to drink anything so she wouldn't have an excuse to be kind to me or say she was too drunk to drive. We had a good conversation, and then I walked her to her car. She told me she hadn't dated anyone since I left, and insisted I was the only person she wanted. She kept asking me to stay longer, but I told her it was still too soon for me. She begged me to come back, but I didn't agree. I gave her my new email address, but when she asked for my phone number, I told her, "You'll just blow it up with texts and calls." She cried about it, but in the end, she agreed. She promised to send me an email about coming back to town the next weekend. Before she left, I asked her, "Would you have forgiven me if I had been the one cheating?" "Yes, in time," she said. "But only if we went to marriage counseling and worked through everything with a lot of talking. Maybe even make a commitment to each other," I replied. "Maybe I could do that in 5 or 10 years?" She said, "I would wait if that's what it would take." Then she took both my hands, looked me in the eye, and said, "God damn it, Paul, I will always love you and do anything to prove it." Her words caught me off guard and stayed with me long after she left. Even though she spoke so firmly, I still couldn't see us getting back together. I felt better about everything, but I couldn't think of her as just a friend, not yet. Maybe eventually, but for now, that seemed uncertain. I went home, went for a long run, had some beer, and thought about how far I had come. I just wanted someone to tell me she wouldn't ruin the peace I had finally found. I had the time to think it over, but everything still felt so clear in my mind. Most likely, this will be my last update. When I first shared my story on Reddit, the moderators kept removing it. To summarize, I ignored my ex-wife for over a year before she found me. She wanted to fix things and start fresh with me. If you thought I would be the typical guy who forgives her, you're wrong. She sent me a long email last week saying she was sorry for the affair and that she still loved me. She even offered to come stay with me for a weekend. My response was clear. I didn't want to fix anything with her. I'm happy living alone, enjoying my quiet life, and keeping things simple. At 32, I'm not rushing to make any big changes. I have my own plans and have spent time with a few women and friends. In my email, I told her I had no intention of reconciling and didn't want to give her my phone number. I told her I didn't trust her anymore because of what she did. But I wished her the best, and maybe we could be friends in the future, but not right now. She got upset with my response and told me she had accepted a job offer in another state. She wanted me to move with her, thinking my remote work would make it easy. She hoped we could start over somewhere new. She even wanted to visit me to try to convince me before her move. But luckily for me, I had business travel planned that week. I'm relieved that I won't have her in my life anymore. She'll soon realize it's over between us, but I expect a few more emails from her. She'll have to find someone else, and she might even cheat on them too. To anyone reading this, live your life, let go of the past, and give yourself the strength to move forward. Good luck to you all, and thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories. Before she left, I asked her, "Would you have forgiven me if I had been the one cheating?" "Yes, in time," she said. "But only if we went to marriage counseling and worked through everything with a lot of talking. Maybe even make a commitment to each other, I replied. Maybe I could do that in 5 or 10 years? She said, I would wait if that's what it would take. Then she took both my hands, looked me in the eye, and said, God damn it, Paul, I will always love you and do anything to prove it. Her words caught me off guard and stayed with me long after she left. Even though she spoke so firmly, I still couldn't see us getting back together. I felt better about everything, but I couldn't think of her as just a friend, not yet. Maybe eventually, but for now, that seemed uncertain. I went home, went for a long run, had some beer, and thought about how far I had come. I just wanted someone to tell me she wouldn't ruin the peace I had finally found. I had the time to think it over, but everything still felt so clear in my mind. Most likely, this will be my last update. When I first shared my story on Reddit, the moderators kept removing it. To summarize, I ignored my ex-wife for over a year before she found me. She wanted to fix things and start fresh with me. If you thought I would be the typical guy who forgives her, you're wrong. She sent me a long email last week saying she was sorry for the affair and that she still loved me. She even offered to come stay with me for a weekend. My response was clear. I didn't want to fix anything with her. I'm happy living alone, enjoying my quiet life, and keeping things simple. At 32, I'm not rushing to make any big changes. I have my own plans and have spent time with a few women and friends. In my email, I told her I had no intention of reconciling and didn't want to give her my phone number. I told her I didn't trust her anymore because of what she did. But I wished her the best, and maybe we could be friends in the future, but not right now. She got upset with my response and told me she had accepted a job offer in another state. She wanted me to move with her, thinking my remote work would make it easy. She hoped we could start over somewhere new. She even wanted to visit me to try to convince me before her move. But luckily for me, I had business travel planned that week. I'm relieved that I won't have her in my life anymore. She'll soon realize it's over between us, but I expect a few more emails from her. She'll have to find someone else, and she might even cheat on them too. To anyone reading this, live your life, let go of the past, and give yourself the strength to move forward. Good luck to you all, and thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories.